Welcome into another episode of the Division II Baseball Podcast. Before we get started with today's episode, we would like to shout out and let you know that the Division II Baseball Podcast is proudly brought to you by our good friends at Pro Baseball Radar. If you're looking to make smarter recruiting decisions in the transfer portal or on the JUCO circuit, Pro Baseball Radar is certainly your go-to resource for understanding player performance across all levels of college baseball. With their proprietary formula, they've placed stats from over 1,700 programs on the same scale. It helps coaches, athletes, families, and agents compare competition levels like never before. If you need to filter by home state, handedness, or other key factors, that's not a problem. If you want to see how players historically perform when moving up or down conferences, their one-of-a-kind transfer history database has got you covered. So save time, gain an edge, and make data-driven decisions with Pro Baseball Radar. Visit probaseballradar.com or follow them on X at Baseball Radar and schedule a demo today. Pro Baseball Radar, because the right move starts with the right data. Welcome into the Division II Baseball Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Minnesota State. The Mavericks are 8-0, and we're joined by Matt Mogers, his team's off to a great start, best start since 1975, and they're ranked 18th in our latest poll, dropped on Monday this week. So they're really just dominating. It's pretty impressive, and really, when you look at Coach's resume, I mean, third best winning percentage in all of D2 baseball amongst active coaches, and one of those coaches on the list has only coached for one season, the other, Joe Urso at Tampa. So the success is as good as it gets, and we're really looking forward to talk about this Minnesota State team today. That they're dominating, scoring 10-plus runs a game, hitting .330. I know it's just 8 games in, but they're looking really impressive. We're excited to talk all about it, Coach. A pleasure to have you on today. Excited to dive in. Let's just start there with you and your team off to a great start. You settle into the season with 8 games and you win them all.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you have 6 months to plan for it and get going, and we were ready out of the gates. We were hoping to play in Missouri middle of February, and about 5 days before that, one of the large snowstorms comes through, and it was kind of interesting. They had more snow down in Joplin, Missouri than we did in Minnesota. So unfortunately, we had those games canceled, and it was tough on the guys because we were anxious leading up to it, and you kind of have that date in your mind as far as the start date, and we pushed it back a week. And then in our conference, we have the flexibility to move some series around. So we go from opening our season with some non-conference good competition games to now we've got to open our season with conference games. So every game is certainly important, but those conference games mean a little bit more. So I think it speaks to our guys in the program and their patience and their resilience and just being able to come out and, take it one pitch at a time, one game at a time. But, those unexpected surprises you have our year is kind of what it's all about. And our group this year is an older group. I think our average age in our team is 21 and a half years old. So we only have one true freshman, on our active roster. So that type of experience, both physically and mentally and emotionally, I think, when you have those type of layers for older guys, it makes it a little bit easier in that transitioning and telling them 24 hours out from their first game that we're not going to go on the trip. They can handle it and make the most out of it. And that's certainly what the guys have done so far.
And speaking of, taking it one pitch, one game at a time, you played 8 games in the span of 7 days. Talk a little bit about trying to just understand the pitching staff and trying to just manage those games of playing that many games in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, right? What else would you like to do is wake up and play a game every day. And we did miss some class. Of course, we have good student athletes that are doing what they need to do in the classroom as well. But we're fortunate to have a deep staff, and I think any successful team is going to have depth, and that's one thing. Certainly, pitching wise, we feel pretty confident in the guys that we're putting out there that they're going to be able to, throw strikes with multiple pitches during multiple counts, and And, you look at our top 5 or 6 pitchers, those guys that they've been in the college game 3 or 4 years. So they know what they need to do to get their work in. And ultimately we were able to come out and they were able to throw some strikes. We played solid defense behind them, and we've certainly had some timely hitting. So we won in a lot of different ways. We've had, a 2-0 game. We've had a 17-1 game. So ultimately at the end of the game, we just want to find a way to win. And I think this team can do that offensively. We're pretty dangerous in a lot of different ways. We can score in multiple ways. We can find ways to get on bases. And our last game here this weekend, we had one inning where we put up 3 runs, and every batter that inning had 2 strikes. And they found a way to make it happen, get on base. And ultimately, I think that's the unselfish attitude we want to have with our team is even though you might get out, man, that guy coming up right behind you, he wants to pick you up. And that's what I've seen so far is just the chemistry and guys being able to pick each other up. And really excited as we have got through the first couple series here. And now a couple days from now, we'll be down in Florida playing another 7 games in another 7 days.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think that when you mentioned the experience of this team and over your 17 seasons now leading this group and again, having won a lot of games, 75% of your games, something that not many coaches can say that they've done, but to do that and have this program sustain this amount of success and then juxtapose that with this year's group and their experience, where do you feel like this team's potential lies? I know you mentioned the mound, and we think you had a grad student lefty look like he's just setting the world on fire and didn't even pitch last year, and he had 20 strikeouts through a couple starts, it looked like. So tell us a little bit about what you think this group could look like down the line with their experience and how it's maybe compared to some of the other successful teams you've had in the past.
Yeah, I think that this team, compares to a lot of their teams in the past. And I think, that's the type of student athlete we're trying to recruit is that when they commit to play baseball at Minnesota State, they know they're going to have an opportunity to win. But more importantly, the culture around them, the guys around them have the same mindset that they understand that every day we're going to come out and we're going to give our best effort and have the right mindset and be a good teammate, certainly in the bigger aspect of it. But you know what? They know that they might have to be patient. There's maybe some other programs where they could play sooner, but they might not win as many games. So it kind of goes back to our development and having the patience with it. And I think there's something to be said about the upperclassmen. We hope that they're the big brothers that, they take a younger player underneath their wing and kind of show them how to do things and teach them a lot of things a peer baseball player can do. And by the time they get to be a sophomore, junior, now it's your turn. It's your turn to go out there and kind of do your thing. And you've put your time in and a lot of it for us goes into the off season, the physical part of it. We start lifting weights before we do any baseball activity up here. So guys understand that we're going to be successful in the weight room before we even start throwing a baseball. So we can't play baseball year round outside here, but we can always find a weight room that's open for us.
And yeah, you talking about the off season. I wanted to bring this question up of like, in your experience, how do you manage, especially in the state of Minnesota, preseason, trying to replicate being outside with the limited amount of time you're actually able to get outside?
Yeah, we're fortunate to have an indoor facility, a sports dome, where our softball team can actually play games in there. It has a couple of cages and it's turf field. And, so I also think at that same time, it gives us an opportunity to work on the maybe smaller things of baseball, more so the fundamentals versus coming out to a field every day and taking batting practice. And when you're limited with space, you seem to tend to focus more on the smaller parts of the game, which we all want to be good at. So that's certainly a big part of it. And then the off season, guys go home over the Christmas break for 6 weeks. We don't see them. So that's the internal motivation when the coaches or when the lights are off. What are you doing to become successful? And I think again that's where we're fortunate to have those type of players in our program. And I point to our assistant coaches, Tink Larson and PJ McEntee and Packy is a new coach on our staff as well. Those guys are dedicated and, we stress a lot of the fundamentals part of the game and those guys do a good part of that. But it is interesting because we have different shoes in our bags. We have tennis shoes, we have molded cleats, and we have metal spikes. You never know where you're going to play at. And you just give us a game and a time and a place and we'll show up and play. But I think that, speaks to our hot start maybe here is when you get that opportunity to play, you just want to go out there and make the most of it.
and making the most of opportunities. It's what, and when we get into some of the individuals on your team, it's what a lot of them are doing, at least right now. And the experience of this group, it stands out. But for you as well, getting an opportunity that's obviously very unique to get to coach your son and to do it at the collegiate level as well. To see his start to the season, a couple 5-inning shutout innings, and he's only allowed 2 hits through a couple of starts. What's it like to be able to do that? I know as a head coach, you're probably a father figure to 30 to 45 guys, but to have that relationship with your son and to know your other son is a great ball player as well at Creighton, just to be able to develop guys at that level. What's this experience like for you right now?
Yeah, I mean, being able to coach Lou is one of the best experiences, ever. Having seen him grow up in the dugout, being a bat boy, and now looking at him, and he's 6'5", and he doesn't go out and get our bats anymore. We have somebody else that goes out and gets him bat when he's hitting. But it's just he kind of has that one step ahead of me approach where instinctually he kind of knows what our expectations are, is how we want to play the game, and the mindset that we have when we approach the game. And it's been exciting to watch him grow and develop as a player in his own mind. And at the same time, the teammates around him are great. We have some great individuals that have similar mindsets, what they're doing off the field and their hobbies and those type of things that they have. So I think, as we look at recruiting guys and how you put the roster together, they have similar interests, not only in baseball as well.
And Coach, with the recent release of the NSIC weekly awards, swept both of them with Ike Mazenga at the bat and Nathan Coley on the mound. Talk a little bit about their impact so far this season.
Yeah, it's super exciting. And I think anytime you have team success, there's going to be individuals that reap the benefit of that. And we certainly want to celebrate those type of awards that are given out to those guys. And Nathan Coley, which we kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, is an individual that had Tommy John, missed all of last year, came back and is now stronger than ever. And super proud of him and the resilience he showed and overcoming the obstacle of surgery and having the patience with that process. And he was a individual as a true freshman. He logged some big innings for us. And as a junior, he's out there in the region, tournament as our number 1 starter and had that setback. And we were able to luckily get him back. And as a 24-year-old, he's a lot different than he was as an 18-year-old. And being able to hand him the ball and know that we're going to get a quality start every time is exciting, but also at the same time, just for his teammates to have him out there. We know that every time he steps on the mound, he's going to give us a chance to win. And Ike Mazenga is a transfer, Division I transfer, and has came in from the get-go and is just a hitter. He's a hitter. He knows his strengths and weaknesses. He is tough to get out. He can certainly hit with power. He has a lot of patience at the plate, so he's going to find multiple ways to get on base. And we've asked him to kind of switch positions. He's playing for the first time in his career first base, and that's been a smooth transition. So, I think again, we talk about older players, and those are 2 of the older guys in our program, and they'd be the first one, as well to mention their teammates and the success that they've had has certainly been a reflection on their team. But it's certainly a good start to our season, team-wise and individual-wise, and we're kind of got back late last night from a road trip, and now it's the let's get in the weight room today, take care of the class work, and kind of rinse and repeat here in a couple days.
And with this conference as well, and just how it's structured, you get the 4-game sets and you start right off the bat, as we've been talking about, with conference play and some of the similarities you've talked about and some of the themes of this group. It's old, it's experience, another old experienced guy, and another guy that has a lot of commonalities with guys on your roster from Minnesota, being able to recruit a guy like Aiden Byrne. He comes on your team last year and just breaks out. He's been with the program, I think, 4th year now, and last year he leads the conference in hits, and I think it was until the conference tournament last year we were watching, and he just basically didn't get out, and then we looked into it, and I think maybe Jack Hines at the shortstop position got a lot of love out of the NSIC, but we were like, man, Aiden Byrne is doing work. He hit about 400 last year. Tell us about your table setter and just what type of leader that graduate student is.
Yeah, unbelievable. 5th year in the program. He was a walk-on. we've had history with players from Egan High School in the past, and saw him play, and certainly had some good actions. He was about 20 pounds lighter than what he is now. And once you get to know the kid, you understand that he's going to be successful. Last year in our conference, they picked one outstanding student athlete of the year in our conference, and Aiden Burden was that player. So the shortstop position, batting in the top of our order, he can do a lot of different things very well, on the field certainly, but off the field as well. And he's one of those guys that has worked himself into position to be there at the top of the order for us. And he's going to be successful in anything he touches. And that's fun to see. And guys kind of gravitate towards him, and has had a great start this season so far. But I think, we have a leadership council on our team, and he's that performance leader that, in a big situation, if there's one guy you want the team at the plate or the ball hit to, he's our guy for that.
And Coach, we talked a little bit about conference play, but now, especially now with your only non-conference action this season, when you go down to Florida, looking ahead a little bit, talk a little bit about the opportunity of playing teams outside of your region to help you assess, where your team is at.
Yeah, I love to play good competition, and I think that ultimately makes us better at the end of the year. And certainly early on in the year, you're not sure what you're going to get with a new team, but as we've talked about, we have that experience, so we have a little bit better idea. But going down to Florida and playing some of the top Division II teams from the Midwest is kind of what it's all about. And we know at the end of the year, when they're talking strength of schedule and comparing opponents and those type of things, we hope to be in that situation where we can look back on this spring trip and say that the games and the work that we put down there is going to put us in a position to be considered for the regional or national tournament that time. So there's really nothing better coming from Minnesota. We get to go down to Florida, play one baseball game a day. Our guys are staying in 5-6 bedroom condos, and just the whole to go down to Florida and see all these baseball teams down there with similar interest. I think that's what it's all about. And it's kind of that moment where you take yourself back to when you're a little kid, and just that opportunity to go play baseball in the warm sun and kind of forget about school. And over spring break, it's kind of the only thing you get a chance to really take care of. So yeah, we're excited to face some very good teams down there. And that's kind of the schedule. The grind of it is, you're just playing one game a day, but you're in the sun, you're in the heat, and times are different where you might play 8:30 one morning and the next day you're playing at 8 at night. So we really stress staying focused with what we need to do to be successful, certainly on the field, and that whole routine that once you're done with the game, now we need to think about, tomorrow and what we can do to control to put us in a good situation.
And as you prepare and as we look behind you and see all the trophies and just know all the NCAA tournament success that you've had and just how often you've been able to get there, when we look at the Central region in general, it's really interesting because it's really at each conference, it's very top heavy. You've got you guys in Augustana, it's Missouri Southern and Central Missouri every year. I mean, in the GAC last year, they had a trio at the top that were all pretty good. Do you look ahead as well within the region and say, pay attention during the year to like what the MIAA is doing, and when you might see, hey, we might look at Central Missouri because they're there every year, stuff like that? Or do you just focus on NSIC and just it kind of goes from there?
Yeah, we don't look at those teams. We're certainly aware about them, and it seems like year in, year out, you're right. Some of those same teams are going to be there every year, and that's the exciting part about it. Is we certainly know how we're going to play. We have an idea how they're going to play. Now it's just a matter of going out there and teeing it up. But no, ultimately we focus on what we can control and being able to watch, our own lineup and take care of those type of things. And we know we need to focus on what we can do every day to become the best team. And I think when you start looking at other teams, you lose focus of what is right in front of you. And we know with this team, we certainly have some abilities to be pretty dangerous on the field, and that depth is a big part of it. And our region is so unique, right? Because we have teams in Minnesota, we have teams in Arkansas. I mean, that really is unique where, in our conference, for example, we're playing 5 conference games a week for the most part. Some of the other conferences are only playing 3 conference games a week. So I always look at our depth in our conference from top to bottom every team needs more than one or two good pitchers. You got to have 5 starting pitchers, and then you better have at least 2 or 3 relievers if you want to do something special. And the players need their rest. It's tough to bring a starting pitcher back, on short days rest. We try to keep, 4 or 5 days in there, knowing that we want to be playing our best baseball at the end of the year. Even though when we go to Florida, if we've got a tight game going on, we've got to be pretty smart about, not leaving our pitcher in too long, because it is only their second or third start of the year.
And Coach, I wanted to get into that for my final question was, recruiting in terms of, the NSIC conference play, where you're playing 3-game weekends, but then playing a midweek doubleheader. Talk a little bit about, how that can be advantageous for you, going further down the line.
Yeah, I think it speaks to usually most successful teams will have depth. And that was one thing I was really excited about our first 8 games of the year. We were bringing guys off the bench, and they were doing as good, if not better, than some of our starters. And some of those inexperienced guys that have been in the program maybe a year or 2 or transfers came in and they did the job. And that's the reality of it is the competition that if maybe you're not doing the job, or if somebody gets hurt or sick, that next guy better be able to step in and hold the line, or if not, do a little bit better. And I think that's what we saw the first 8 games with our team, is just that depth is something we're super excited about. And as we go throughout the year, playing 50 games in 3 months, you need to be able to have that, whatever team you are. So I think that's what you've seen, certainly in our conference, is the top teams, maybe their 4 or 5 pitcher certainly could be a number 1 or number 2 pitcher on a lot of other teams' pitchers. So for us, it's about, ultimately going out and finding a way to win. And I think, certainly in the North, you're going to have different conditions, wind blowing in, wind blowing out, or a cold day, those type of things. So that's the balance of the workload, is just figuring out how can we be playing the best at the end of the year, despite kind of what we have going on early on the year. There's certain role positions that you try to figure out. Maybe your pitching staff, there's certainly some questions, and you really don't know that until you throw guys out there. Certainly you have some evidence to go off and practice, but ultimately you've got to play games to figure out some answers.
And Coach, final question for me is really just a little bit about the program overall and yourself. You take over the 2009 season, your first year, and you win 38 ball games, and you've won 31 plus games in every season and 40 plus 8 different times. Like, how do you maintain the consistent level of success that you've had with the program? I know that probably could be a whole essay of an answer, but just in short, what are some of the biggest keys that you've realized and that have been important to you to maintain such a high level of success with winning with this program?
Yeah, I've obviously been fortunate that before I was here, we were very successful. So I was able to be assistant coach for Coach Boyer, the retired head coach that was here before me, and before him, Coach McCarthy was here. So I think that's kind of set our program up for future success based kind of how we've done in the past. And ultimately the recruiting that right type of student athlete that wants to win. And it's everybody wants to win until they see what it takes to be successful. And there's certainly no gray area there. It takes hard work. You got to be willing to show up day after day and put the work in. And I think that's what separates, certainly our team and our individuals, the most successful ones. We were talking about Aiden Bird and Nathan Cully, those 2 guys right there at the front of the line when we talk about hard workers and being meticulous in all the details they do. And I put a lot of responsibility on those upperclassmen that when they leave the program, we hope that they can, have it a little bit better than when they found it. And that's a tough order to do. But I think when you try to recruit the right type of student athletes, those individuals that are successful in the classroom as well, and they're driven and they have certainly a good work ethic and their attitudes in the right mind frame. And you look at our program over the years, there's certain high schools where we have certain players every year. There's certain club teams that we have certain players every year. And there's our reasons for that. So ultimately for us, PJ McEntee, our associate head coach, does the recruiting and understands what type of player we're looking for to be successful. most of our players are from Minnesota. Once in a while, we get some guys from, from out of state, or even we've had Japan or Canadian players too. But I think our core group of players are the Midwest kids that understand kind of what Minnesota State's all about. And academically, we have so many different offerings that hopefully it's a good fit, number one, academically, but then number two, baseball as well.
And Coach, we'd like to sincerely appreciate you for taking out the time to chat with us, talk about the Minnesota State program, and we wish you the best of luck as you travel down to Florida, and safe travels down to Florida for the weekend. Best of luck rest of the season.
Okay, appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
And that is head coach Matt Moggers at Minnesota State.